Hey guys, it's Christian from the Colfax Guitar Shop. I'm going to show you how to do a restring on an acoustic guitar. We've already done the electric, so I figured why not show you how to do a restring on the acoustic. So somebody came in a couple days ago with this to do the restring. I did notice that when they dropped it off, the action was pretty high and they don't want to do a setup on it. So, they're just getting back into the guitar. They want it easy to play as possible, but don't want to put the money into the setup right now. So we're putting on some extra light strings to kind of compensate for that. It's just going to make it easier on their fingers as they get back into it. As far as those strings go, here I can walk you over here. Lots of different gauges. The thinner the gauge, the easier it's going to be on your fingers, but you're going to sacrifice in sound. So the heavier the string is, the more sound you'll get out of the guitar. Where I really notice it the most is if you jump down from lights to custom lights. That's one thing, but as soon as you jump down to 10s, you notice a pretty big difference. Something to think about if you want to sacrifice that sound for your fingers. Keep that in mind. Tuning is the other thing. So if you're going to be tuning like D standard, I probably would not suggest a set of 10s. It's just too light of a gauge. The strings will be flopping around on there and not be set up well. So
it kind of looks cool when you see them vibrate, though.
Right. Yeah, when they just flop around like a wet noodle. Yeah, it looks pretty cool, but doesn't sound that good. This one we're doing the 10s, just because that action is so high. So as they get into it, they said they might bring it back down the road to do a setup on it, and in that case, maybe their calluses are built up a bit more and they're ready to step up anyways, and then it's gonna really improve the playability with a setup. Typically, I'll check a couple things before I start the restring. Main thing is the bridge. If the bridge is lifting off significantly, I don't like to check them in for a restring even. If that bridge comes off on my watch, I don't want anything to do with that. So it's either reglue the bridge or you can restring it yourself. I'll sell you a set of strings and you can put that risk on your shoulders, but I don't want it. So checking the neck too, just to see if anything is just like about to implode on itself. Make sure the guitar can actually withstand even a restring. So that's the main thing I'll check first, just to make sure that we're good to go there, which this one's fine. There's no gap there. Basically what happens is over the lifetime of any acoustic, you got like 160 pounds of tension on there roughly, and it's constant 24/7. While you're asleep, this thing's still holding this tension on there. It's pulling up on the bridge, so eventually it's going to come off. Whether it's got bolts, whatever, I don't care. It's gonna happen. Get to it here, I guess. Typically I'll take the strap off when I'm working on it. It gets in the way. It can be dangerous. It can snag on things. If you're like restringing your first guitar from home, I recommend a bench of some kind. A lot of people just use their kitchen table. You can get a throwaway towel, or you can use your good towel, whatever, I don't care. But yeah, first thing I do is loosen the strings. I got my drill here. I'm doing lots and lots of restrings. This is definitely a bit of an advanced technique. Most people are gonna have a standard string winder. Highly recommend one of the two at least. Just trying to do this by hand is gonna take you way longer than it needs to. Your hand's gonna be all cramped up by the end of it. Just it'll speed up the process. Got my beer belly here, shelf, and I just go start loosening the strings. I'm holding the strings here with my hand just in case one of those ever breaks on me. It doesn't whip up and hit me in the face. One thing I just forgot, I just remembered, I should have checked the electronics first. With the string tension on there, I can still get an idea without. If there's anything going on with the electronics, now is the time to address it. But there's a piezo, there's a pickup element underneath this white piece, the saddle. It's making noise. I can adjust the controls on the preamp and get a good idea. Now what I'm gonna miss by not having the strings up to tension here is whether the output is even throughout the strings. Sometimes you'll get it where if that saddle isn't dead flat on the bottom and the saddle slot isn't dead flat, one string or the other will not pick up as loud as the others. So, all right, so I got the strings loosened here. Now I got to take the bridge pins out. They make a couple different tools. I personally like just regular string. I call them string cutters. I think they might be called wire cutters or dikes. is the technical term, but string winder I was talking about. This little notch is for bridge pins to pull these out. They don't really work that well, I'll be honest. There's a lot of bridge pins where you can't get this under there at all. You can just barely, but you can see how it's not notching in properly. My preferred method is just my string cutters. I'm not actually like using leverage on this. I'm basically kind of clamping it well below this area here, and I'm not squeezing this together too tight, and I'm just pulling straight up. So as I go through, I'll just grab them all with my hand, then I just kind of, parts tray is always handy. Grabbing all the strings and pushing forward, pushing this way, that kind of releases the ball end, and then I can start wiggling them all out of there. These guys are really in there. Yeah, I just throw this off to the side. I start unwinding here at the headstock. If they're put on right without all these crazy knots, they'll come right off. You just unwind them. Yep, and then I just coil them up. Saves me having to pick up strings off the floor. If you just throw them in the trash, one's gonna spring out on you and be a pain. So next step is cleaning. This nut came loose. That's something that can happen. They're supposed to be glued in, so I'll glue that back in. That's easy, just a little bit of super glue. This guy, the saddle, is meant to be held in by friction. Ideally, it's tight enough in the saddle slot to where it just doesn't fall out, but a lot of them do. It's not the most expensive guitar, so it's not a big surprise. Paintbrush, disposable, cheapo one from the hardware store. I use this thing on every job. I use it all the time. Basically got all this dust here. You can tell it's probably been sitting on a stand or something, collecting dust on all these parts where the dust settles on all these kind of horizontal parts. If I just went and started cleaning this with like a polish, I'm just smearing all this dust. I'm creating like a gritty mud almost, like that can act like sandpaper and scratch your finish. So before I start cleaning with the polish, I always dust off really good. This one's also been sitting a while where it's got lots of dust on the inside. You work on a 100-year-old guitar, like there's just massive amounts to bring in there. Tighten up the tuners next. I personally like a little 4-inch crescent wrench. That's just what I've learned on. Honestly, there's safer ways, like a nut driver. If you have a good nut driver set, like those guys up there, those are great. Some of them won't be notched out enough to actually get the post in there, so you can't actually reach the nut. So I typically just use one of these guys. I know some people use like a spanner wrench like this. I've never been a big fan of these unless I kind of have to. I like them better for like tightening switches on electrics. But Phillips head. Some tuners will be flathead. If you don't have a beer belly, you got some homework. Nice little touch here that most people don't realize. Protectant plastic cover on there. And a lot of people don't even realize it's on there. Same thing with pick guards. There's like a clear plastic film to protect the pick guard from getting scratched before somebody buys it. And I always recommend taking it off. One thing you can kind of see, I got like a little bit of sticker residue. It's kind of gummy. I'm gonna take paper towel and some naphtha, basically lighter fluid. Yeah, so that's just taking off that gunk. I don't necessarily have to be using naphtha right here, but I figured, well, I got it on this towel, I may as well use it. One thing about paper towels, I actually don't recommend it for most people. Learning what guitar will work with a paper towel versus what won't, what kind of finish especially. It's a long learning curve. What kind of pressure you can use. You can scratch finishes, especially if you're using that first or last roll of the paper towel. There's an adhesive on there. You know, you have to tear apart that first sheet of the roll. So that's because there's glue on there, so that glue will scratch your finish. Brand new pickguard, never use a paper towel. I always use a microfiber cloth. Okay, I did a little preliminary rough clean. Next thing, I'm gonna grab some steel wool. This is 4/0 steel wool. It's 4 zeros. It's the finest steel wool they make. On a unfinished fingerboard like this, I'm okay to go to town. If you have like a Fender Strat or something that has a maple fingerboard, do not use steel wool. Any finished piece of the instrument you want this touching. This is unfinished wood though, so I am safe. Basically over time, especially if you're in like a really humid environment, the frets will just tarnish by being exposed to the open air. Any of that finger cheese or gunk, whatever you got on your hands, transfers over to the fretboard. Not a bad idea to just clean it off with this. Make your frets nice and shiny. I'm basically going against the grain on the fingerboard, mainly so I can get up in this little crux here along the edge of the fret. You can kind of see some of that gunk on the fingerboard is coming off, and the frets are polishing up as well. Certain fingerboards, nicer high-end guitars, where they sand the fingerboard to a very high grit fine sandpaper, you'll actually put scratches into the frets. So if you have a nicer guitar with like almost a high sheen, even if it's unfinished, you'll actually scratch the fingerboard. You could also tape off the whole fingerboard. They make these protectors. I'd say if you're trying to keep it cheap, just get some low tack painter's tape like that blue stuff over there. And see, I have different sizes. That's so I can just work my way down the fingerboard and mask off the whole thing. If you do have a high-end guitar and you're using steel wool, nice finely sanded fingerboard, you could put scratches in it going this way. Often all you gotta do is just go back with the grain. A little more elbow grease getting in there, but that'll bring those scratches back out and you won't really see them. So, all right, so I've steel wooled the whole fingerboard. You can kind of see I got this little dust that I've accumulated. That's just basically the steel wool disintegrating on me and creating these little like tiny particles of metal. So same thing as I was saying earlier, I do not want to just go polish this with a guitar polish on a paper towel, microfiber towel, whatever, and then just start smearing this around. I'm gonna scratch that finish. So back to the paintbrush, swipe it off away from the fingerboard. I just do kind of the whole fingerboard and the headstock and this whole area all over again. So yeah, you'll get some steel wool in the sound hole possibly. If you have an air compressor, there you come in handy. I'm gonna squeeze by you. So the reason I didn't do this before is because I knew I was gonna make more of a mess in there. So So I steel wooled my neck. Now it's time to throw a layer of oil on there. I think Dunlop makes some. Music Nomad has F1 oil. Lemon oil's good. I've heard of people using mineral oil. I don't know how I feel about that. Avoid oils that really build up, like linseed oil or tongue oil or something. Lemon's great. F1's great. Most of them have a good smell to them, but I usually just put a little bit in a paper towel and I sit and let it absorb for a second. If I just have a puddle on there and I slap it on there, I'm just basically putting a little pond of oil on there on one fret that just wants to wick in. So you really don't want the oil to wick into the frets for a super long period of time. It'll actually can penetrate into the fret slot, can cause issues. The fret might pop loose on you. You can usually tell where it's hitting or not. I don't let it sit for more than a minute. Certain fingerboards, maybe I'll extend it past that, but you can usually tell. Like you'll wipe it on, it looks dry immediately. Yeah, I don't want it sitting on there too long. Really, anytime you change the string is a good time to oil the fingerboard. I'd say twice a year is ideal, probably. So I really wiped it off well. Now I throw these in the trash and switch over to grab 2 more paper towels. This was my naphtha towel. I'm keeping that over there. I might save that for later. I mean, as far as polishes go, a cleaner, I mean, really this is a cleaner. I have a labeled polish. Like when I think of polish, it's actually going to buff out the finish in a way. So you don't want something that has, I personally don't like a lot of wax in any of my cleaners or polishes or anything. I view them as completely separate things, but they're out there. A lot of different companies make them. If you have a guitar with like a flat or satin finish, you don't really want to be buffing it out, because you will. You'll actually start to shine up that flat finish. So I view it more as like one's a cleaner, one's a polish. I get the paper towel wet. Have you seen videos of guys that just spray the whole guitar? The tuners, everything is just like completely misted. Don't do that. That drives me nuts. I don't want polish like penetrating in all my tuners and everything. Like it's just gonna rust things out, and like it should stay on the paper towel. Really the only time I'm spraying the actual body is like maybe around here I'll spray a little bit, or the back. But like I don't want to risk any polish or cleaner getting in the sound hole at all, or any metal parts, any exposed wood. Like this isn't oil, it's an actual liquid that I don't want it to soak into my bridge here or anything. So this is unfinished piece of wood here. So sometimes these little cruxes, I'll take a ruler. You really got to make sure that you wrap several layers of towel around this edge. Like this corner will break through the paper towel, so you kind of got to keep it moving so you don't break through. There's definitely a risk to doing it this way, and it can take some time to get used to it. So really outside of this, if I wanted to shine this up more, I could try some actual polishing buffing compound. Like my favorite is Novus, this stuff. Novus number 2. Great for buffing out guitars. Better than most actual buffing compounds. It's made for plastic. Pretty much ready for strings. Typically what I do when I clean a guitar is I focus on cleaning the area that the strings are going to cover up first. So I'm not too focused on the back and sides or the back of the neck right now. I can do that after I got new strings on there. I'm just going to get it dirty again anyways. I'm going to put fingerprints all over it and the rest of the process here. So this nut fell off, so I'm going to glue that back in. This is a pipette with some super glue. Basically I'm putting the nut back in the slot. I'm going to check that it's actually making contact across the board. There's no gaps. It looks like it's just slotting right back in. Feel it on the ends and get it to where it's just right and smooth where I want it. Pinching it in there, and then I kind of fold it back. Put a little dab of glue. If you put too much in, especially if it's thin super glue has basically zero surface tension to it. It's really good at wicking into things, the thin stuff at least. So if I had my fingers pinched on the ends like this and I flooded too much super glue in there, it's gonna wick down. My fingers will act like a wick, and it's gonna just suck out to my fingers, and then next thing you know, I've glued my fingers to the side of the headstock. And it created a huge mess in the process. If you just put a dot right in the center, it's still gonna wick in, but it will leave a little bit of a blurb of super glue on the fingerboard. Have a paper towel ready, wick it up. You want to be quick with your paper towel. If I just sat there, I'm just going to glue the paper towel to the fingerboard. Then you could either come back with super solvent, which does melt plastics. If you left it on this, let it hit this binding too much, it'll mess things up. Or I could just come back and scrape it with a razor blade, go back and hit it with a little more steel wool, maybe put another little bit of oil on there, and you'll never see it. So this one you got to be really careful not to hit the finish on the top. All right, so yeah, I cleaned up got the steel wool out of there. If you take out your saddle, you might pay attention to which side's which. You can see this is compensated. You can usually just tell by the wear. This is the wear of the thicker string, but if you can't see that, usually this B string is your biggest indicator. It's usually cut all the way back so the string breaks off this side of the saddle and not this side, and then usually the G breaks off the very front edge. The way this is cut will look different on a lot of different brands. As long as you make sure that that B's on the back side and that G's on the front, you should be good. D'Addario has color codes. You can kind of see the ball ends are different colors. That can be helpful to pay attention to. Also, when you uncoil these, do it away from you and away from the guitar, because they spring loose pretty quick. You can kind of see before I put the string in, I'm bending it, giving it a little hook like this, and it's going to be hard to tell. You can see how the string is fatter, right? The winding's there, and then it gets thinner. Well, there's a lip on one side of that wind. I've gotten in the habit of bending my string so that lip is on the outside of the bend. The main reason I do that, if you have a really old parlor guitar with a thin pyramid bridge and the saddle, the white piece that the strings sit on some old vintage guitars, it's right up on there. Every once in a while you get a guitar where the bridge plates either chipped out or somebody shaved the bridge down, and basically the winds just come up through the top. We save these for making cleats or grafting in pieces, but this will be a good example. Teach you some guitar anatomy here. So yeah, this piece is called the bridge, this whole piece. This white piece is the saddle. Flip this over, you see the inside, this is the bridge plate. What I'm trying to explain here with those windings is that if this piece is too thin, I'll feed a string through. If really want the ball end of the string to sit right on the front edge of the plate. But as the plate starts to wear over the years, or just chips out, the ball end will start to suck up into the top like this. It could be like stuck right in there. And then those windings start to stick up more and more. And if your saddle's really close to that bridge, then the string is actually sitting on those windings. Most people this will not apply to, unless you got a really old vintage parlor guitar, but nonetheless, make it a habit. Maybe you'll get one day and then you're like, oh yeah, that's why I did that. So that's why I do that. The main reason I do this bend, I want to lock it in. I want to lock this into the right side of that bridge pin. Feed the string through and make sure it's kind of locked in, and then I'll put the pin in. And I'm kind of pulling up on the string when I put the pin in. So let's show you on this guitar. Now that we got the visual, like that's what you want to see. If you're stringing up your guitar and your bridge pin is coming out like this on you as you tighten it up, what's probably happening is you didn't put this bend in and the string. Let's put a straight one in. So it's doing this. The ball end is actually resting on the bridge pin rather than the actual bridge plate. So when you pull it up, when you tune it up, it's pulling the bridge out. So that bend kind of helps you lock it in. Got a little hook there like that. If you can put it in, lock it in, and actually lift up the guitar a little bit, that's pretty good. You get a little bit of a grip on there to where I'm getting some movement out of it. Put the ball end in. I know it's locked in on the plate where I want it. Then I put the pin in. Once I feel that it's locked where I want it, put the pin in, and then I give it a little bit of a tug just to make sure it's kind of locked into place. If you look in there, if you feel in there, I can feel that the bridge pin, the ball end is right locked in front of the bridge pin. It's a pretty important step. Like if you don't do that, you could pull the pin out, but you can also I could put this in anywhere I want, you know? Like I'm coming out completely sideways right now. So it's a good way to make sure it stays nice and centered. Sometimes your bridge pin might be too tight. I don't know why. On newer Martin guitars, you push the pins in all the way and they're like sticking up that high. It looks terrible. I don't know why they do that. But it's consistent. It's usually those like phenolic. We got all our strings in. They're kind of locked in place. Pulled up on them. I push the bridge pins down nice and tight. I'm ready to start stringing it up. My distance, it really depends on the tuner. Some tuners are this hole is going to be higher up than others. Depends on the thickness of the string. But in general, I'm tuning up to this post. Coming up to about here is going to give me enough slack. I'll use the other tuners as a rough guide, but your guitar might be different. You know, your tuners might be closer together or further apart, so that measurement doesn't always apply. Why don't I just I'm roughly like an inch and a half, you know, 5/8 kind of thing past this tuner. So I give it a slight little bend in the string, not a full 90. I like to clip the string. Honestly, this is a bad habit. If you can get good at feeding this whole string through, it'll save you a step. Clipping the string gives you a little bit more control over just guiding this little bit in rather than that whole length. But this is the way I like to do it. But I'm basically feeding up the string to that bend I made. And the reason I didn't make the full 90 is because I want to actually finish the kink of the string on the tuner itself. So I just do this kind of push motion and lock it into place. If I did the full 90 first, I'm going to end up with this big swoop out here and a gap. You really want the string to be hug the tuner post as tightly as you possibly can. That's why I don't do that full 90. I do it on the tuner. I use my string winder. You could use your normal winder. I start winding. I'm going to go over where the string comes out and then down. Always go down after that first one over. That first one over locks it in a bit. I lift up that piece. My thumb that's right up against here, that's like the foundation of how I'm controlling this string. Should also stress that like I'm keeping tension on the string. Once I start going for it, I keep some tension. Feed it through, finalize that bend on the string. go over and under. But here, pull back and look at my hand right now, like how I'm holding this. See all the slack? I'm pulling out the slack. This can be really difficult to get used to, but it's going to save you a lot of headache on a lot of different guitars, especially a classical guitar. Keeping that, you almost have to pull the slack out to get it right. So I'm pulling up with these 4 fingers, and then this thumb is pushing down. And the thumb is also my guide. Like it's keeping it nice and snug up against the post. So you might notice as I'm winding it, I'm kind of cinching it with my thumb in this hand at the same time, just to make sure that the winds are nice and snug against each other. I'll show you one other thing. The reason why I go to the bottom of the post, and the reason why most headstocks have an angle, is if the string just came straight off here, there's not going to be enough downward pressure to push down on this nut slot, and then your guitar will start sounding like a sitar. If you wind the string up on the posts, you're getting rid of that angle that you want, and it's coming more straight off, so it doesn't push down here as much as it would if it was coming to the bottom of the post. Alright, so I got the strings on there. It's not in tune, but I'm just going to go, and this is my redundant thing. I don't know why I do it, but I'm a bit of an old dog here. I used to just trim these right over the ground, so the ground would just be littered with like little 1-inch pieces of string.
Stab you in the shoe or something.
They'd go through my shoes. Like, didn't matter how thick my shoes were, like boots. Like, I'd just be walking one day and like, like,
Yeah, oh yeah.
there's one in there, and then I'm like digging around with like hemos and a X-Acto to try and pull this like string splinter out of my shoe. I just go down on a diagonal, basically short enough to where I'm gonna hit. If I'm messing around up here, I'm basically hitting the tuner post before I hit the string. First tune, I'm going real rough. These strings are gonna stretch out as I pull the tension up on the neck from one string to the other. You're putting tension on one string and it's pulling up on the neck, and as you're doing that, as the neck is getting pulled up, it's actually going flat on the other string because it's adding slack to it. So I'm never precise on that first round of tuning. Always wind your tuners to the inside of the posts here, not the outside. You'll see guitars where it's like this whole side is like on one side and then the whole side here is on the outside. And what that means is it's very counterintuitive how you actually turn the knob to tighten the string. Alright, so I got it roughly in tune. First thing I'm going to do is just stretch the strings. These strings will stretch out over several weeks. I basically pull up with 4 fingers, push down with my thumb, and I go up and down the neck. As far as strings go, I really suggest experimenting. It's such a personal preference. There's all these different materials and gauges, and beyond your own personal preferences, it can be the guitar's personal preferences too. Like some guitars just might want some 80/20s on there, you know, some brighter sounding strings. Maybe you're doing the drop tuning and you just gotta find that sweet spot with each guitar. Like some guitars like an open G or something, you know, so it's worth experimenting. I'd say any new guitar you get, you should go out and get 3 or 4 different sets and narrow down what you're looking for. You'll probably realize, like, oh damn, like I'm glad I experimented. I thought I was just a phosphor bronze like 12s guy, and believe it or not, like this guitar is telling me otherwise, so I'm gonna roll with it, you know. I mean, I guess I'm pretty much done. Like at this point, I'd probably stretch the strings another couple times and just start playing the crap out of it. Yeah, that's how you restring your guitar. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and yeah, check out the shop. Bye.